Hey, what's up, guys? We're back with another NFL video. Today, I have with me special guest JB&M Sports Fanatic. I will make sure to link his channel in the description below. Make sure to drop him a sub. We're both really grinding to 1K, so make sure to show some love over there. We are also doing a video over on his channel with the top 5 dark horse teams in the NFL, so make sure to check that out as well. But today we're predicting, or we're giving our top 5 most overrated NFL teams. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So we have my number 1. I have the Dallas Cowboys. Um, I personally think that the Dallas Cowboys defense is going to struggle quite a bit again this year. I don't think they're going to be taking a big step forward. I do like their addition of Keanu Neal. I think that could definitely help the defense, but between injuries with Leighton Vander Esch and really an aging defensive line and a very questionable secondary, I'm just not sure this Cowboys team is going to be that 10 to 12 win team that everybody's predicting.
Yeah, I definitely. My apologies there.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I won't touch too much on that for now, but I certainly understand where you're going at with that. They do have a young defense there. For me, I chose the Denver Broncos in large part because of whether it's Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater. I'm really not sold on their quarterback room. And then when it comes to the running backs and stuff, I mean, Melvin Gordon. I mean, he's not the guy he was when he was with the Chargers. And so that to me, this offense is really going to hold the defense back. I think they do have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball, of course, but it's not like they're like the 2001 Baltimore Ravens to where this defense is going to carry them all the way per se. Plus the tough
Right.
division that they're in, it's just going to be a lot for these Broncos to have to overcome offensively. Now, if an Aaron Rodgers trade would have happened, I would gladly update this team, but right now they're not going to be a team that goes out there and win 11 plus games. Just not happening.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, if they were to get a Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers, yeah, this team could very well be a 10 to even 13 win team. In all honesty, like they've got some solid weapons, they've got a solid offensive line, and pretty dang good defense. But yeah, like you said, it's not that type of defense, like the 2000 Ravens that can carry the team. So I definitely agree with your spot right there. I'll go ahead and jump into my number 2. I have the Arizona Cardinals. I personally, okay, I'm not trying by any means to say that the Arizona Cardinals are a bad team, so don't think I'm saying that. Um, I'm just saying they're a little bit overrated in the fact that everybody's expecting this defense to be top 5, top 10, and that they're going to be a 11 or 12 win team. I mean, JJ Watt has some real injury concerns and is, you know, he's starting to get a little bit up there in age. He's like 31 right now, I believe. Same with Chandler Jones. He's also 31 and has some injury concerns himself. Their linebacker, Zaven Collins, was arrested a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure the status of that, if he's going to be suspended or what's going on with that. As well as, I saw a lot of people hyping up the AJ Green pickup. I think AJ Green is well past his prime. I'm not even sure if he can be a great wide receiver 2 on any team. I'm I'm really not super fond of that pickup. But that's kind of my opinion there. Um, JB&M, we can go ahead and go over to year number 2.
Appreciate the setup there. But yeah, just to really touch on those Arizona Cardinals, you certainly bring up some valid points. AJ Green, what version of AJ Green are they really getting? Obviously, we haven't seen the AJ Green that we're accustomed to seeing for quite some time. JJ Watt, he is, getting up there. And so there's certainly a lot of questions that, with this Arizona Cardinal teams, I can certainly understand that. So good coverage there. And for me, just like you had number 1, my number 2 is these Dallas Cowboys. I mean, First of all, Dak Prescott coming off that injury. I mean, not only does he have to return to where he was before, because where he was before, it was good maybe from a statistical standpoint to where you're like, okay, I deserve my money. But now you
Right.
got to prove that you really deserve that money. And so, I mean, he's been good, but can he be elite? And for that type of money, they're going to need for him to be elite out there. Now, we all know the weapons that they have offensively, but they have to be able to put it together for a full season. They can't have slumps when they go out there and lose games where they shouldn't. And so, I mean, there's high expectations for America's team every year, and they always find a way to let themselves down. And
Hmm.
defensively, they're going to have to do a lot of things differently. Now, do I think that they could improve upon last year? It's possible, but these are the Cowboys, so I have to see it happen first before I believe that their defense will be improved. But
Right.
who knows?
Yeah, and I definitely like your point of, yeah, Dak Prescott has the stats, like he lights up the stat sheet. Nobody really cares about the stat sheet unless this is fantasy football. I mean, ultimately, yeah,
Right.
last year it wasn't Dak losing them the games, it was the defense. But you still gotta prove as a franchise quarterback that you can pull through, the hardships there and still be able to win the game. Um, and that's something that I'm not sure Dak has been able to overcome quite yet. But I do think this will be a really good offense, though. Um,
Agreed.
so we'll go ahead and jump into my number three. I have the Seattle Seahawks. This is kind of a similar situation to the Dallas Cowboys. Sorry, apologies if you can hear that background noise. There's someone on a motorcycle driving by. um,
Must be nice.
it's a pretty nice day out there today. Um, yeah, I have the Seattle Seahawks. I'm not really sold on the secondary. I thought it was a really, really bad move for them to get rid of Shaq Griffin. I thought he was a really underrated corner. Um, Jamal Adams, I don't think he's as bad in coverage as everybody says he is. Like, it's gotten to a point where people hate on him just because he gets some sacks, too. Like, he's still solid in coverage. He's still a good NFL safety. In fact, in my mind, I think he's still a top five NFL safety. I really do. Um, and I mean, yeah, there's some solid pieces on that defense, but I think the defensive line could struggle. Really, the only thing I really like on the defensive line is Puna Ford. I think he's a pretty solid D tackle. Um, but yeah, I expect the defense to struggle. Last year, we definitely saw Pete Carroll starting to get conservative late in games to where he wasn't really letting Russell sling it and really win the games anymore. Like later in the season, I wouldn't say it turned into a boring offense, but it definitely didn't have that fun explosiveness that it did early on in the season. So that's why I have them at number three.
Yeah, definitely I can understand that. I will say that, both Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, I ended up getting them on my fantasy team. So I understand what you mean when they went conservative, because that's what really cost me. I went from winning early on to towards the end, my team just leveled off at the end. So I certainly understand that. And it seems to be the theme with the Seahawks when it comes to Russ. He'll have an MVP type of performance, halfway through the season. And then towards the end, things kind of slow down. Then the running back
Mm-hmm.
situations, they tend to get hurt at the most inconvenient time. And then the offensive line. I mean, Russ himself wasn't happy with the offensive line. I mean, he says things are good now. How good are things really? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have to see how it all comes together. I mean, because I feel like the rest of the division, they did actually get better. Obviously, the Rams got better. I think if the 49ers can stay healthy, they're a better team. So we'll see how they end up in the pack, but certainly can understand having them on this list. Now, as for me, I chose the Green Bay Packers. And so there's just so many questions right now. Will Aaron Rodgers actually be back? And so let's assume that Aaron Rodgers does come back here, okay? What have the Green Bay Packers really done to really improve themselves? Because the rest of the NFC, they're pretty deep, and they've got some teams out there that can really give the Packers some problems historically. I'm thinking of a couple years ago in the playoffs when they matched up against the 49ers. That defense was way too much. for Aaron Rodgers and company. So you're asking Aaron Rodgers, in order for Green Bay to return to where they were last year, he might even have to have a better season than what he had last year for them to get back there. Because the Vikings, they're going to be better. The Bears, at some point, whenever they switch over, I believe Justin Fields, he's going to be good. They're going to be better. So I think it's going to be a lot for these Packers. And should Rodgers not play or miss some games for them, look out. Things could really look bad for these Packers.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I really strongly considered putting them on this list too because I personally don't see Aaron Rodgers playing another snap for Green Bay. Um, and right now, the Packers are kind of in cap space hell right now. I thought
Right.
it was kind of a bad idea for them to pay Aaron Jones when they've got, both Devontae Adams and Jair Alexander coming up to extend. Um, I mean, it with the rest of that division kind of on the rise, I think it's going to be kind of a dark future for the Packers for a little bit. Yeah, it could be tough for them. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into my number four. I chose the Miami Dolphins. Now this is another team that I don't by any means want people to think that I have them as a bad team. I don't. I still think they could get 8 to 10 wins. I just I'm not a believer in Tua. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I'm not super confident with Tua. Um, I mean, plus the Xavier Howard situation, it seems like he's pretty set on not playing for them again. Sounds like he really wants to be traded. Now, could that just be smoke so we can get an extension? We don't know. We don't know. But I feel like there's locker room issues. I feel like the coaching doesn't believe in Tua as well. I don't think they really believe he's the guy. I think that's why they were so heavily involved in all of the Deshaun Watson rumors all off season. Um, and I mean, yeah, Brian Flores is a very, very good coach, and they've got some talent. I just with a tough division, tough schedule, and just all of the locker room issues, I'm just not quite sure the Dolphins are going to be, an 11, 12, 13 win team like, people are predicting them, in my opinion. Do you have any
Yeah, and
thoughts
I'll go
on
ahead and
that?
piggyback. Yeah, certainly. So I certainly understand that. I think Brian Flores has done a tremendous job. I love what he's been able to do throughout the draft, setting his team up for success, not just in the present, but in the future as well. For me, it comes down to, as you mentioned, Tua and his development. I mean, last year they really just did not open up the playbook at all, but they did elaborate that clearly, he just didn't have the full grasp of the playbook, and it wasn't the traditional off season leading up to that. So there's a lot of questions, and it all surrounds around how Tua is going to be able to go out there. But I think because of the division, you're going to have teams like Buffalo, obviously. I think the Patriots, they'll be much improved this upcoming season. And so I think they'll probably be about a 10-win team, but I don't think they exceed about 10 wins this upcoming season. And Tua,
Hmm.
he's really got to go out there and show me something to change my mind about that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So for me, I chose the Las Vegas Raiders. And so for me, it all comes down to what has John Gruden shown me ever since he's come back with these Raiders. And I mean, when he took over this team, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty hyped. I thought that this was, the stars were gonna align. The Raiders seemed like early on in his tenure that they'd be a team that's a playoff team, but it's just something missing about these Las Vegas Raiders. They're gonna certainly need Henry Ruggs, the third to step up tremendously. He did not do that last year, so they're going to need more production, from the receiving position. And then it's just, when it comes to what did the Raiders really do, I guess, on the offensive line, trading away I believe Gabe Jackson, that
Hmm.
was pretty, I wouldn't have did that personally. But I get that the Raiders should be a team that, probably in most case scenarios, that they might can say, okay, we were so close last year, we might can compete again this year. But I mean, when you look at the division, and I'm really looking at the division hard, and I'm like, okay, so which team from top to bottom do I like the least? I mean, maybe I like them a little more than the Broncos because of Derek Carr, but how much does John Gruden really like Derek Carr? There's always rumors about that, and they always say where there's smoke, there's fire. So is he helping them? Is he holding them back? Is he going to go out there and do great? I've heard a lot of different things about Derek Carr, but I mean, if he doesn't come out there and have an MVP type of season, I don't see the Raiders making the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And I I over the past few seasons have been a believer in the Raiders. I mean, and like going back to 2019, they won some games that they shouldn't have won. Like they exceeded my expectations. So when going into 2020, I I thought they were going to be, a good team. Like I thought they were really on the rise. I thought John Gruden was looking to be a really good coach. And I mean, yeah, they got some solid wins. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs one time. They got a few solid wins in there. But I don't know what they were thinking this offseason. Um,
Yeah.
really, really, what I had liked about this Raiders team the last little bit was their offensive line and Derek Carr. And this offseason, they completely tore apart the offensive line in getting rid of Rodney Hudson, Gabe Jackson, and Trent Brown. And their replacements in Alex Leatherwood. I want to say they got someone from the Texans. I don't even remember what his name is. Like they replaced borderline Pro Bowl players with just kind of nobodies, in my opinion. So I don't see the Raiders being a very good team this year. Um, I do like their defensive pickups, though. I thought it was really smart of them to pick up Trayvon Moehrig. I think he's going to be a pretty good safety in the NFL. But I think this Raiders team is still quite a ways out from competing. So, excuse me. I'll go ahead and go into our final teams. For me, I had the Denver Broncos. Much like JB&M said, I'm not real confident in their quarterback situation. I think Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, even in Carolina, he had a lot of talent around him. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey was hurt, but Mike Davis did a solid job stepping in for him. He still had two 1,100-yard receivers. Um, the offensive line wasn't great last year, but they were a lot better than expected. Like they at least performed like an average offensive line, in my opinion. And for Teddy to lose eight, yes, eight potential game-winning drives, it shows he has no clutchness, and I don't think that's going to change a whole lot with the Broncos. I'm just not real sure about that situation.
Yeah, I certainly like as I mentioned before, I certainly agree with that. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater has been the type of quarterback that if he's your starting quarterback, that means you're probably going to be looking for another quarterback the next year. Drew Lock, I mean, he led the league in turnovers last year. So that obviously, the Broncos, they have some questions there at the quarterback position. So that's one of those things that you obviously, if you're a Broncos fan, you hope that Drew Lock develops and takes the next step, but you can't bank on that. There's just too many uncertainties there.
Yeah, I was also really scratching my head in the draft too, where they passed on Justin Fields for Patrick Surtain.
Yes.
Their secondary is already one of the best in football, and I mean, if they have a new quarterback, this can be a really good team. And in my opinion, I thought he had the most upside out of anybody in the NFL, or any of the NF of the
Draft
first round
prospects.
rookie quarterbacks. Yes. I don't know why that was so
Gotcha.
hard for me to say. But yeah, I think he has the most upside, and I think he could be really, really good. I don't know why the Broncos passed on him.
Yeah, I
But,
will say I do like I like the fact that they have Patrick Surtain. I just don't like the fact that they obviously passed on Justin Fields to do it.
right.
But at the time that it happened, I was hoping that my team would select Justin Fields when they passed on him. I was excited
Hmm.
about that. But from the Broncos' perspective, I mean, certainly, whether it was Justin Fields, if you don't believe in Justin Fields, you could have probably got someone like Mac Jones. There was just a lot of quarterbacks on the board that I feel that probably could have been better for the future of the Denver Broncos. So you took a
Yeah.
risk hoping that it's either Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah. Well, and really, they honestly could have even sat back and taken a Kellen Mond, have him sit behind Teddy or Drew Lock for a year or two, and then when he's ready to play, I think he has all the talent in the world. He just, needs to fix his mechanics a little bit, and, you know, like right now, I feel like his talent is a little bit too raw. Like, if they would have taken him and let him sit for a little bit, he could be the future of that franchise, in my opinion. But
Right.
yeah,
A
we can
lot
go
of
ahead and move
options
on to
out
your
there.
last team here.
All right, so I went with the Pittsburgh Steelers here. And for me, Pittsburgh has just constantly been, a playoff team. They've been extremely consistent. I really like the Pittsburgh Steelers defensively, but this right here came down to Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, what version of Ben Roethlisberger are the Pittsburgh Steelers going to get this year? As we saw last year, they came out to a hot start, but they have receivers that throughout most of the season, they just led the league in drop passes. So they was dropping passes. They had nothing really from the running game. Although I do like the addition of adding Najee Harris, that is big. But how's the offensive line going to be able to protect for him? As well as Ben Roethlisberger. And I mean, Big Ben just looked to me like he needs to retire. This has to be the last year for Big Ben. And so there's so many questions about the future of this team, who's going to be quarterback, and obviously, is it going to be Mason Rudolph? Does Dwayne Haskins play some type of role in the future? I know Steeler fans don't want to hear that at all, but I mean, I mean, right now these are the quarterbacks that if Big Ben were to go down at some point, you're choosing between one of those two, and so I haven't seen enough from Big Ben since he's been back to convince me that the Steelers' offense would be where they need to be, which would be at least average. When you have the Ravens and the Browns, who would have thought that we'd be talking about the Browns like this? But those two teams are, I mean, I love what the Browns have, and then I like what Lamar and the Ravens have. So this is going to be tough for them, really tough.
Yeah, for sure. I really agree with that. To be honest, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger. Looking at his stats on paper, you'd say these aren't bad numbers. Like he seems like a good quarterback, but watching him actually play, when was the last time he actually had, you know, some really good down the field, passes? I mean, most of his passes this offseason or this last season were, short, like 5 to 10 yard passes. I don't think he has the arm strength to, still hurl the ball downfield if needed. I don't think he has that extra playmaking ability that he used to have. And yeah, he might still be able to be a fairly efficient quarterback, but if a time were to come that the Steelers need him to make a play, I don't think I don't think he would be able to do it. Um, and yeah, as you mentioned, the Steelers were also the team with the most wide receiver drops last year. I feel like their receivers, particularly Chase Claypool and Juju, I felt like they were too focused on TikTok and social media and stuff that they
Right.
weren't really focused on the team and really working. I mean, we saw even in the playoffs, even after the Steelers lost to the Browns, Chase Claypool was still running his mouth saying, yeah, the Browns are going to get clapped by the Chiefs now. And he was just running his mouth, and,
Yeah.
you know, he was too busy with social media and TikTok that I don't think his mind was in the right spot. And judging by this offseason, I still don't think it's there. I think they could really struggle with drops again.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility, but I do like the potential of their receivers. But it all comes down to who's quarterback, and honestly, and them just focusing, as you mentioned, not on social media, but actually going out there and making plays. But this will be, I'm really intrigued to see how this season is going to play out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I do want to emphasize that, the reason why they're on this list is because they have, high expectations, such as every other team that we picked on this list. These are teams with high expectations, but we're just saying that perhaps they won't live up all the way to it. They can probably still win 9, 10 games this season. Probably we'll see if that happens, but they won't live up to the hype.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think they're gonna be. If they do make the playoffs this year, I don't think they're gonna be like a deep playoff and Super Bowl contender. Um,
Right.
I just I think it's starting to get to time for the Steelers to rebuild and look at the future for their quarterback spot.
Absolutely. But they've got great talent on that defensive side of the ball though. So I
For
do
sure.
like that for them moving forward. And that's going to help make this transition whenever that does happen a lot easier for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
For sure. Well, do you have any last thoughts on this list before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to let the fan base know, like, hey, as I mentioned before, these teams, they're fully capable of still having, winning seasons, but perhaps, just lower the expectations a little bit. That's
Mm-hmm.
all I really want to just emphasize out there, just a little bit, especially Cowboys Nation. They have the talent to, on paper, like on that, and this will look good. And I do like what Zeke did in the offseason in terms of, losing weight, and he looks like he's in better shape. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if he can go out there and look like he did, years ago, that could be a major plus for the Cowboys.
Yeah. Well, and another thing too, like, yeah, we know that you guys, fans of these teams, we know you see more than us, going on with the teams. So if we miss something, feel free to, let us know. But based off, what the eye can see, I personally just think these teams may be a little bit overrated. But
Agree.
I think that's
Agree.
everything. I think that's everything I had. Do you want to say any last words before we finish?
Oh, yeah, that pretty much covers it for me too. I appreciate you for having me on for this video.
Yeah, for sure. Again, guys, make sure to subscribe to both of us if you haven't already. Again, I'll leave a link to JB&M Sports Fanatic in the description below. Make sure to smash that like button, and I will see you next time. Later.